Welcome, everyone. And today, Eugene and I are going to discuss the reasons why a property fails to sell. So, Eugene, in your expert opinion, what are some of the reasons as to why a property fails to sell?
The main reason will be overpricing. A lot of agents are doing this, especially the high streets, because basically, if you promise them a certain price, they will believe you because you're the expert.
Okay, that's very true. And why do agents overprice?
So they can win the instruction. Basically, sometimes, most of the times, the vendors have a certain figure in mind, and the agents will actually go with the price that the vendor recommended, because basically, at the end of the day, it is their property. But we should advise them because we're property. Um, Experts in this case. So basically, you wouldn't tell your doctor to remove your kidney, and he will just go for it, no?
Yeah, that's very, very true. Um, what are some of the other reasons in your view as to why, so other than price, what are some of the other reasons as to why a property doesn't sell?
I mean, in for the last couple of properties I've sold, the main reason was the overall distance from a train or a tube station. These days, everyone wants to be close to a train station because they can always um, go in, like, go to work or visit family, go to a certain hospital. So they want to be closer to those transport links, so they can. It's actually making their life easier. But basically, we cannot have all the houses close to a train station or a tube station. From the investor's point of view, like for example in Wandsworth, when they're building flats, they're looking to see how close is a certain train or tube station, basically. So it has to be in a way under 20 minutes walk, normal walk. So if it's more than that, they will look for other plots to build their blocks.
Okay. Any other reasons?
Maybe in my case, I had a property close to a water treatment plant, so it was most of the time it was a bad smell, so they didn't want to live in that area. Or there are plenty of reasons. I'm sure you might have a couple of them.
Yeah, I mean, for me, there are four reasons. In the industry, they're commonly known as the four Ps. So price, person, presentation, and promotion. The biggest one, as you alluded to before, is definitely the price. If a property doesn't sell, it's likely to be overpriced. One of the early lessons that I learnt when I first joined the industry, and it's stuck with me to this day, is it's never the market, it's never the property, it's always the price. So price is primary. Looking at the other three P's, so you've got presentation. So how good are the photos? Does the photo stand out?
Yeah.
Does it make the person stop and click on the property? Is it compelling enough? Is it different? Is it using drone photography, etc.? The other is the promotion. So where is it being promoted? Is it being promoted across all of the different portals? Is it being promoted across social media, etc.? So the promotion side of things is very important. And then finally, the person, i.e., the agent that you've
Yeah.
decided to instruct to sell your property. How good is that agent? Again, another tip
How
that,
proactive is the agent?
yeah, how proactive are they? Another tip that I was given from the very beginning, that's again stuck with me to this day, is as a seller, the worst thing that you can do is put the right buyer in front of the wrong agents. So if you have the wrong person representing you and your house sale, then you're either not going to sell or you are, but you're going to leave money on the table. But let's not get it wrong.
Yeah.
Price, price is number one. In actual fact, you can forego the other three P's if you get the price right. And it also works the other way in the sense of you can have the right person, the best presentation and promotion, but if you get the price wrong, you won't sell. So price is absolutely the number one reason as to why a property doesn't sell.
Do you think the buyers are more cautious than they were 2 years ago?
Um, well, it's not that they're necessarily more cautious, is that they're far more educated. So everything in this digital world that we live in, everything leaves a footprint. So buyers are very savvy. They have access to the same information and the same data as we do.
Yeah.
And it's at a click of a button as well. It's not as if they have to trawl through pages and pages and pages of data to get the information that they want. It is literally at a click of a button.
Yeah, and most
Um,
buyers, I've noticed that they're looking to buy a bigger property and get a bigger loan than buy, let's say, a smaller property and then upgrade in the next 5, 7 years. So, of course, they have to be more cautious because there's more money involved. They might want that property for the next 10 to 20 years instead of 5 to 7. So, yeah, they have to do their research and be really careful because you never know what you're going to sign. Even the loan, you have to be really careful.
and that's why, and that's one of the reasons why flats with high service charges, as an example, are taking a big hit. What was typical, certainly in my day, your first step on the property ladder would be a one bedroom, a
Flat.
two-bedroom flat.
Yeah.
Whereas nowadays, buyers are avoiding that step altogether and going in straight to a house or to a share of freehold property because they're avoiding those, very expensive service charges, which only increase year after year after year. So they're very cautious. Just to come back to your original question, they're very cautious about the type of property that they're seeking to buy.
Yeah.
Flats are becoming less and less, some flats, not all, of course, but some flats are becoming less and less attractive. And some first time buyers would prefer waiting to buy a house, which is obviously freehold, or a share of freehold property, as opposed to going through the traditional routes, which
Yeah.
was leasehold flat, build up enough equity, save up in the meantime to then afford a house. So
Yeah.
yeah, cautious in that sense as well.
Why do you think so many sellers are ignoring the market feedback and they're set on a certain price? Like,
Uh, it's called it's called the endowment effect. I believe I've got that right. I could be wrong,
okay.
but it's called the endowment effect. Basically, we all believe, as human beings, we all believe whatever we own is most precious and is most valuable. So because we own it, we're a lot more protective about the price. So that's why it's very difficult for homeowners to accept that their property is worth less
Yeah.
than what you're telling them.
They are
Um,
emotionally involved. I mean, hence why. So let's say many businesses are looking for advice from outside because that person, that specialist, will not be emotionally involved, and they can um, check everything and advise accordingly.
yeah, absolutely. So that is the main reasons why, or the main reason as to why homeowners um, ignore the markets or ignore reality, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Even with the data in front of them and the cold hard facts in front of them, unfortunately, some sellers just deny those facts and
Yes.
believe their
Yeah.
property is worth more than what it is. Perhaps maybe their neighbor's property sold for a certain price a couple of years ago. Perhaps the market conditions a couple of years ago were better.
Well, definitely better.
It may
Yes.
have been it may have been a seller's market, whereas right now we're very much in a buyer's market, and that's going to impact on what you can achieve today versus when it was a seller's market. So, unfortunately, things are not always equal and not always like for like, and it's not always that simple. Just because a property sold for this much last year doesn't always necessarily mean that you're going to get the same, if not more, this time round.
I'm
Um,
always under promise and over deliver, hopefully, because basically, if you go on the market at a higher price just to test the market, or you're not in a rush to sell, what happens when you find your next property and you haven't sold? You might not be able to sell in the couple of months because you just tested the market or you weren't in a rush to sell, but you were actually selling. No one is in
well,
a rush to sell because in UK the conveyancing process will last 4 months anyway. So saying you're not in a rush to sell means you shouldn't sell.
yeah, I mean, if you're not in a rush to sell, then yeah, you absolutely shouldn't sell because time is of essence. Urgency is very important. So if you are really not in a rush to sell, then you shouldn't sell, because you're then scuppering your chances for the next time that you do try to sell and when you are serious about selling. Testing a market at a higher price is not all that damaging as long as there's a plan in place if you don't sell. So for instance, if you did try and test a higher price, and let's say after week two, week three, it hasn't yielded any offers, then as long as you're decisive and you make that change quick enough,
Yeah.
then it's not going to be overly detrimental. Where it becomes detrimental is you try at a higher price and then you sit on that high price for weeks and weeks on end, believing someone's just going to come along and offer you what you want. It doesn't work that way. So
Yeah.
as long as there's a plan in place, um, and you change the price or realign the price after, let's say, 2, 3, 4 weeks of marketing, that's fine.
I mean, usually the first offers in the initial 2 3 weeks are
The
is
best
the
offers you're
market
going to get.
speaking. Is the market
Yeah, the
speaking? You
your
might get
best
a
offers.
you might get a higher price, but if there's a big gap between your current asking price and the offers, then you might have to rethink your strategy or even change the agent because in a way the listing might become stale. The agent might lose interest because they have a lot of instructions. They're only selling between 55 and 60%. So if it's not selling in the first 8 to 12 weeks, they're going to move on. Your property will still be on a right move. Actually, I actually heard yesterday that Rightmove CEO will remove the listings that they were like more than 8 years or 8 months on the market or so without any price reductions, change of photos. So basically, those stale old listings affect the property market as well because those are the properties that haven't sold because they haven't asked the right price or they haven't had the right marketing.
Yeah, I mean, your best offers. I mean, it's commonly known that your best offers are going to come in the first few weeks of marketing. Again, not always. I've
Yeah,
had it
no,
where sometimes it.
most
Yeah,
of the
most of the
properties,
time. Yeah, most of the time, your best offers are going to come in the first 4 weeks of marketing. Once you've
especially
gone past that.
properties under 1 million, those ones should sell between 4 and 8 or maybe 12 weeks. The properties over a million, that might take slightly longer because it's a different strategy there. But if you're selling a 3 bedroom semi-detached house under 800,000, that should sell in 12 weeks.
Yeah, maximum. Yeah, it shouldn't need more than 12 weeks. And if it hasn't sold in those 12 weeks,
There's a problem.
um, there's obviously a problem, and it's it's very likely
Could be the
because the
price.
price, yeah, the price is wrong. But the price is wrong for the current market, just to be clear, just because a property hasn't sold at a particular price doesn't mean necessarily that price you'll never get that price. It just means that you're never getting that price in
This year.
today's
I mean,
market.
if you're gonna stay
Yeah.
3 years on the right move, your price might be okay for 2028 property market.
Yeah, if it's a where market conditions change, as I said, a buyer's market becomes a seller's market, then yes, that price that you tried to attain could then become achievable, in a different market. But yeah, if a property's been on for 12 weeks and it hasn't sold, then yes, evidently the price is wrong. But in those 12 weeks, what should have happened is that a good agent, will have a plan, as I do.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
if I have a property, um, there's every single week I have a new suggestion, new ideas in which we can, in where the property listing, as you put it before, doesn't go stale. There's
Yeah.
different things that we can tweak, that we can change, that we can add to ensure that it doesn't go stale. But of course, the most, you can come in and take new photographs. You can reword the description. You can add a right
Reposition,
move
basically.
product, but the number one and most effective is absolutely the price.
Yeah, I mean, if you start with the right price from the very beginning, you have better chances of getting even more. Because if it's correctly priced, the buyers
Correct.
will feel that FOMO, fear of missing out. And if they really
Correct.
like the property, they will not mind if their budget allows it to pay 10,000 more, because they will get the property and they will not like they will probably stay there for years. Um, so yeah,
Correct. Agreed. Yeah, no. Totally agree with that. Pricing right at the very beginning. And I know we've spoken a lot about price,
yeah,
but it really is, as I said, using
it's
my
always
four
about
keys
price.
example. Pardon?
Unfortunately, it's always about the price
Not always. It's not always about the
most of the
price.
time
As I said, most of the time it's
for the
about it's
normal
about it's
properties.
it,
Yeah,
it is about it is about the price, and that's why pricing right from the start, and pricing, as I like to say, pricing competitively from the start, leading with your best foot forwards, is always the best strategy. Because as I say, you can price wrong, have the best photos, the very best agent,
yeah.
promoted in a very best way. But if you got the price wrong, you're not selling. Whereas, as I say, the other way,
You
if
will
you
miss
get
the
the price
momentum.
right, you could get the other three P's wrong. You could have average photographs, an average estate agent, subpar promotion. You will still sell
Yeah,
because of the price. So, whilst we are dwelling on price, it's because it is the number one reason by far as to why a property doesn't sell. Not the only, but it is
I
absolutely
mean,
the main reason.
the buyers will try to negotiate even further down, because they might think something is wrong with the property, or if it had multiple reductions, or it's been on the market for 3+ months, they will try and get a better price. And you might be in a situation where you have to reduce or agree a much lower price than expected, because let's say you cannot keep up with mortgage payments, or something happened in your family, or you're getting a divorce. You cannot like hope for the best. You have to take certain measures, but if they
But
should have
that's
been,
why you need. But that's the very reason why you need a good agent, because there's too many agents out there. who are willing to take on any listing, whatever the price, in order to hit their targets.
Yeah,
It might surprise a lot of people when an estate agent takes on a property, selling it is not their main priority.
yeah,
Their main priority is winning the listing so that their competition doesn't, and obviously to see what they can squeeze out of it in terms of financial services.
yeah.
Selling the property is a secondary, tertiary consideration,
The
believe it or not.
extras, yeah. You
So
all
then
got the stories, yeah.
they're not overly concerned about selling it. That's why it's vitally important that you choose the right agent who's going to have that very honest conversation with you from the very outset to say, right, here are the comparables. Here is where I believe your property sits, and demonstrating in a very credible fashion what the pricing strategy should be in order to avoid overpricing. But unfortunately, there are too many agents out there that are not so bothered about selling a property. It's about market share. It's about, as I said, financial services. It's about not letting the competition win that listing. So the
Yeah,
pursuit of selling that property isn't the priority. It's all of the other things that I've just um, mentioned. So,
yeah, you're right,
you
yeah.
know, as personal estate agents, as you and I, we can't afford to be taking on properties and for them just to sit there
Yeah,
collecting dust.
we're investing a lot in marketing, and it's our own image, so we cannot like mess around. We have to be certain that at least we're trying to sell all our stock. I mean, I wouldn't call it stock because we're not taking 30 properties and selling 15. We're taking maybe 10 and selling 8, 9, even 10 sometimes.
Ex-
So basically, they have a better
exactly,
chance. We're gonna
and that's
provide
why.
the. No, go on.
And
Sorry.
that's why I'm very, and I know you are as well, Eugene. I'm very selective in terms of sellers. I've walked away from so much business whereby a seller wants to test the market at a higher price, but doesn't agree to reducing it to where I believe it needs to be, or even starting where I believe it needs to be.
Yeah, the
And I've
recommended
just
price.
walked
Yeah.
away from business because I just know, um,
You're
you know,
wasting your resources, yeah,
I'm wasting my time
and your time, yeah,
yeah, I'm wasting my time in shorts. Whereas, as I tell those sellers, they could walk down the high street, and they could pick their, not just high street, but you can walk down the high street, pick your agent, pick your price. The agent will not argue with you. They were
yeah,
like, cool, no problems at all. Let's give it a go.
yeah,
Um, and that's something that you and I, as personal agents, cannot afford. And it's that mentality and that approach that is very, very, very damaging. The way, as I said, I do my appraisals is look at the comparable evidence, look at the comparable data to see what has recently sold in the local area, for similar type properties. And again, I trawl through the data so that, again, we don't know what it's going to sell.
yeah.
Nobody knows what a property
Not
is going
not
to
even
sell for.
a rig surveyor, because some people they're like, oh, if
Yeah,
they're hiring a rig surveyor, they will know the certain price. They're not paying for your property. If the buyers this month are paying a certain price, that's gonna be the price,
yeah,
unfortunately.
but you have to go with a
You
price,
have to be
um,
as close as possible from the
and that's
real
where,
price.
right, and that's where research comes into it. Um,
Yeah,
and that's why I do my research so that, you know I get it as accurate as possible. And like we said before, if the vendor wants to try at a slightly higher price to what I've advised, I'm not against it. But as long as we have that contingency plan in place to say,
yeah,
right, we'll try the higher price. If all we're getting is tumbleweed, then I'm just going to reduce it on week whatever, two, three, four.
yeah. Usually in
Um,
week two, because otherwise you're losing momentum and
yeah, the earlier,
you're satisfying the vendor
the
in a
earlier,
way,
the
but
earlier, the better. the earlier the better. But as long as you do it within those first 4 weeks, you're minimizing any, for lack of a better phrase, damage.
Yeah,
But yeah, as long as you're doing it decisively in those first 4 weeks, yes, of course, the earlier the better. Absolutely. Week two is absolutely the best way to go. But it's also okay to leave it for slightly longer, maybe week three, but certainly no longer than week four.
yeah. I mean, I think that that covers everything for today's discussion. I
I
mean, this
agree.
is our first video. We're hopefully gonna try and make at least a few more. Um, Thank you very much, Wally.
You're very welcome, Eugene. And thank you very much for, or to everyone who tuned in and watched this far.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye.